So this would be, Gary, Dave Gosher, Gary Lawless with you from Rock Creek Cattle Company here in Deer Lodge. So we started this nighttime at noon during the playoffs, right after the resumption of the NHL season. This is the 43rd nighttime at noon, 43rd and final one, at least for now anyway.
At least they got the right guys on today.
Yeah, for better or worse, here we are on a big day, right? So you've got unrestricted free agency kicking off. Normally July 1. In 2020, it's October 9th, and there's already been a lot of action today, Gary, and the Golden Knights have made a trade, so a lot to cover over this next hour. But it's, it's fun stuff. You get the juices flowing on days like this with a lot of activity.
You do. Now, normally this is July 1, which happens to be Canada Day. It's the Canadian version of July 4th.
Yep.
And this is actually, this weekend, is Canadian Thanksgiving.
That's Sunday?
So there's kind of a tie-in. Yes, you are coming to a Canadian Thanksgiving.
But it is on Sunday.
On Sunday.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Now, one of the things you can do today is just follow Twitter. And Darren Dreger, who is, for my money, certainly one of the top 5 in the business. I would go McKenzie, Dreger, and Friedman pretty close. Johnson right after him. That's my top 4.
There you go.
Right there.
Yep.
He is reporting that the Toronto Maple Leafs and Vegas Golden Knights have spoken to Alex Pietrangelo. Interesting to see who else steps forward. Now, the reports we're hearing from Pietrangelo are that he's not in a rush. He doesn't want to sign today. They will, maybe visit some places. We're hearing the same thing from Taylor Hall. Yeah. That he wants to take his time. I also think that is a function of the market, that there are certain teams, like, let's face it, if you're Alex Pietrangelo, you want to sign with a contender. And I would assume the exact same thing with Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall's younger, but, how many playoff games has he played in?
Yeah.
He wants to win. And
under 10.
Yeah, he wants to get it going. So if those teams don't have cap space, and most contenders are in a position where they need to do some work. Now, one team with cap space, the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Taylor Hall would look great with the Oilers playing with Connor McDavid, because he is a player with speed that can, that can do things at that high rate. Like, he might be one of the few perfect fits to play with Connor McDavid.
Imagine that going back to his old team, right?
It's hard to imagine that happening. It's interesting to me that the Oilers came up short on Jacob Markstrom, because when I look at the Oilers, what are they missing? They've got two of the best, certainly two of the top 5 forwards in the NHL in McDavid and Draisaitl, and they need a goalie.
Yep.
And they let Jacob Markstrom land in Calgary. We haven't heard the terms to that deal yet, but that's if you're in the Pacific Division, I think that having Markstrom at Edmonton, probably a pretty scary situation.
So we've had 4 goaltenders change teams today, right? And we'll just kind of run them down for you. Henrik Lundqvist, 1-year deal to go to the Capitals. Braden Holtby, 3-year deal to go to Vancouver at $8.6 million. Cam Talbot ends up in Minnesota, 3 years and $11 million. Jacob Markstrom to Calgary. As Gary said, we haven't seen any numbers on that deal just yet. And then 2 other goaltenders stay with their present teams. Anton Khudobin, who was so good for the Stars during the playoffs, he stays in Dallas, a 3-year deal to remain with the Stars. And Matt Murray, who just recently had been traded from Pittsburgh to Ottawa, he gets a lot of money from the Senators, a 2-time Stanley Cup winner, 4 years, and a $25 million extension. He was a restricted free agent. So you've got 4 goalies that have found new homes today, and then Murray, who just found a new home recently in Ottawa, long-term extension, and Anton Khudobin stays put. You mentioned my money, so you've got the big 3 free agents not in the goaltending category, Pietrangelo, Krug, and Hall. Nothing yet for those guys. Nothing yet, and it doesn't have to happen today, right? It could happen over the next little while, and but those 3, as of right now, have not signed with anybody.
Yeah, I am hearing rumblings on the Markstrom deal that it's going to be around 6x6. So we'll wait and see what they actually pan out to be. But that's probably, I would imagine that's that's the very least it would be in terms of term and average annual value when you figure that Matt Murray got $6.25 million a year, which is pretty good money.
Yeah.
Yeah,
really
Hugh Dobin. I bet Hugh Dobin would have, he probably went out and stuck his head out, to see what was around. And when it didn't really please him, he probably had said to Jim Nill that Jim Nill would have made him an offer, certainly. And he probably said, I think I can do a little better than that. And at his age, you probably want to do the best thing you can do for your family. So, stuck his head up from behind the shrubs and didn't, none of the neighbors were...
like the groundhog.
None of the neighbors were throwing a better party than the one that was being thrown at home. So he said, okay, let's do it. And great signing for the Stars. I think that between him and Ben Bishop, Dallas remains having one of the best tandems in the NHL.
Yeah, the grass was plenty green where he was, right? Yeah. Not always greener somewhere else. So the Golden Knights make a trade. Rumored over the last couple of days, Paul Stastny going to the Winnipeg Jets for Carl Dahlstrom, who spent 4 years in the Chicago Blackhawks organization and then ended up in Winnipeg last year. Missed a good portion of the year, broke his hand, missed 22 games with that. Also a conditional fourth-round pick coming the other way to Vegas in 2022. You'll recall they traded a fourth to Detroit just in the draft the other day to trade up and get goaltender Jesper Vikman. Yep. So they get that pick back. Certainly this trade, though, Gary, you look at it and just on the face of it, $6.5 million cap hit. They're trying to free up some money, you would think, to try to land some sort of a big free agent here in the market.
Well, they needed to get compliant. They were already above with the Stevenson signing and the Robin Leonard signing, so they needed to get compliant. And this was Kelly McCrimmon dealing from strength here. You look at the center ice position with the Golden Knights. They have William Karlsson. Chandler Stevenson can play in the middle. They have Nick Waugh, and then they have on the way. Cody Glass is going to play, and I think Cody has to play in the top six to really be effective. And you wonder about Peyton Krebs and how much noise he can make. He came to camp and earned a spot with the team before they headed to the playoffs in the bubble. We've been told that he almost came in and almost got to play a playoff game when he was in the bubble. And I feel like Mike Pence here. There's a fly zooming around me. We are in the last Best Place, Montana, and the door is open here to our studio because there's beautiful fresh air mountain air coming in. So,
brisk October day.
Not really complaining, but this fly we could. Maybe during the break you can get your fly swatter out there.
Not a problem.
Out there, Dave. So
sure.
I think that they're real solid at center ice. And, I love Paul Stastny. Was one of the best guys to talk to in the dressing room. Always had a thought on hockey and, learned so much of the game from his Hall of Fame father, Peter Stastny. There was just it was cool having the Stastnys. That's hockey royalty.
Yep.
It was cool having Paul Stastny on the Golden Knights roster. But I won't use the word expendable because Paul can still play and did a lot of good things for the Golden Knights. 9 points in 18 playoff games this year, and that's not a bad number by any stretch. Wins a lot of draws. Nick Waugh is going to probably have to step up and be really effective, and I would imagine he'll get lots of defensive zone draws. The thing that maybe some fans might go, well, now they're going to be really young up the middle. Well, they are. But when you have Mark Stone on one wing up top and Riley Smith on one wing up top, they play like centers down low defensively.
Yeah.
They are just they're that kind of players. So like Mark Stone, when you go back to when he was in Ottawa, his last year in Ottawa, his wingers were Brady Tkachuk and Colin White. Career years for those guys. And, they played a ton. Mark Stone can, I'm not Pete DeBoer. I'm going to speculate a little bit here. Would not surprise me if Cody Glass played with Mark Stone this year. If it's, it's Glass between Stone and Pacioretty, you've got size on that line, which helps Cody. And I saw Cody a week ago. He's put on 20 pounds. This is like this injury, while it didn't, probably it really sucked for him not being able to play in the playoffs. For the Golden Knights and for his long-term development, probably a really good thing. He'd been on skates forever. Now it's a long stretch, not on skates. It's just when you're skating and practicing and playing all the time, it's hard to put on weight. So now he's not going through that duress physically. He's able to bulk up a little bit and that's just going to happen with age too. With some of his maturity. So I just think that he's ready, and I also think that Krebs is going to be fascinating. Winnipeg gets a player that I think they needed a second line center. It'll be interesting to see how they use him. The last time he was there, he played with Patrick Laine and Nikolai Ehlers, and neither of those two players are very good defensively. Paul is good defensively, but he has slowed up a little bit. So I really wonder about that combination. I think they'd be great in the offensive zone, but I think that they would struggle in terms of a 200-foot game. So I wonder if Stastny doesn't end up playing with Blake Wheeler and maybe Kyle Connor, and you move Scheifele between Laine and Ehlers, and then you've got speed and a bunch of things on both lines. And Blake Wheeler plays well defensively. Connor can really skate. That to me speaks to being a pretty good combination.
You were in Winnipeg a long time, and there's been so much talk here that they're looking potentially to move Patrick Laine. Would they move him? And if so, why would you trade a guy that's a perennial 30 to 40 goal scorer? What do you think?
I think you need to be really careful. Just a quick signing.
Yep.
We'll do this all throughout the show. The Ducks have signed Kevin Shattenkirk, and the Rangers have signed Jack Johnson to a one-year deal. The Shattenkirk deal is 3 years with the Ducks, so we'll unpack that maybe a little bit later on. Back to Laine. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, I actually think that he's only 22. He's averaged 35 a year since he got into the league. He's had some injuries. He's another guy that, physically hasn't really, reached his maturation. They've had issues. There's no secret that he wants to play with Mark Scheifele. Mark Scheifele doesn't want to play with him. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. That's a problem for Winnipeg. They need to figure that out because those two guys should play together. I think that, Scheifele probably figures every time I pass the puck to Laine, he's going to shoot it. Well, he should. He has one of the 3 best shots in the National Hockey League. He's right there with Ovechkin and I don't know who else.
Stamkos when he's healthy.
Yeah, but it's a really small list. So that I would be reluctant because you know what I mean. If you put Patrick Laine with the right center, he's going to score 50, and it wouldn't shock me if this guy got close to 60 one year. He does have that kind of potential. So you trade that player. First of all, you better trade him out of Canada this year if you are, because if they have a Canadian division and you got to look at Patrick Laine every six games or so, you're not going to like it. It's not going to be. That's the Vancouver Canucks. Letting Markstrom go to Calgary. Yeah. If Gary Bettman has to reconfigure the NHL's alignment because of the Canadian and U.S. border being closed due to COVID, then you're going to have a Canadian division. All those 7 teams, they're going to, you divide them up 82 games or however many they play amongst a 7-team division. Like Markstrom, Vancouver's going to be looking at him an awful lot this year. And I like what Braden Holtby has done in his career. Obviously, he's been a great goalie. And
by the way, they get Thatcher Demko, who looks pretty darn good against the VGK.
I was just about to say, very good. But Jacob Markstrom, if not for injury last year, Vezina, a real legit Vezina candidate. He could make life terrible for Vancouver.
Patrick Laine, 4 years in the NHL's averaged 34 goals a year. 36, 44, 30, and 28. Not something to sniff at. So we'll see if anything happens there. But the Jets reacquire Paul Stastny. Of course, at the deadline in 2018, Stastny went from the St. Louis Blues to the Winnipeg Jets. Had a real good run in that window with Winnipeg, and was part of that team that the Golden Knights knocked off in the West Finals. So that's the trade the Golden Knights make earlier today. They free up $6.5 million against the cap, and still lots to come here on our show. Free agency well underway. It started at noon Eastern, and already a bunch of movement around. But still the three big fish, if you will, Pietrangelo, Krug, and Hall. Nothing just yet. Our coverage is brought to you by Ahern Rentals, with over 54,000 pieces of rental equipment available nationwide. Ahern Rentals is ready to support your next project in construction, industrial, landscaping, and more. Ahern Rentals, Vegas-born since 1953. Dave Gosher along with Gary Lawless from Rock Creek Cattle Company in Big Sky Country, Montana. Lots more to come. Free agency well underway here on the 9th of October. We'll have more after this on Fox Sports Las Vegas.
Ahí viene el robo, se viene Roy, Roy lo tiene, Roy. Nicholas Roy con el primero, creo que en su carrera en esta temporada con los Vegas Golden Knights. Del otro está Cody Glass, no conectan con él, se suelta el puck, recupera el equipo de Vegas Golden Knights. Ese es Pacioretty, costado izquierdo, el pase. ¡Gol! ¡Gol! ¡Golazo de Cody Glass!
Y se vuelven a equivocar en la salida,
Lo
regalan otra vez. ¡Gol! Le quedó otra vez como regalito de Año Nuevo a Mark Stone, y era la tercera ocasión que el equipo se equivoca. Me refiero a los Dogs, se equivocaban en la salida, regalan por tercera vez el puck enfrente de la portería, y eso obviamente debido a la buena marca, la buena presión que estaban haciendo los delanteros del equipo de Vegas Golden Knights. Pero ahora sí la aprovechó Mark Stone adentro, que estamos cenando 1-1 el marcador.
Súmete que te quedó jabón, digo, el señor Mark Stone. Y ahí estamos 1-1, señores. Nuevamente jugando el equipo de Vegas Golden Knights frente al portero, va a quedar arriba el puck, a dos tiempos.
Bueno, ahí está Marche. Marche. Marcó el sexto, damas y caballeros. Y lo que había se acabó.
Excelente victoria.
Lo decíamos.
Para el equipo de los Vegas Golden Knights. Faltó mandarlo más lejos. ¡Disparo! Y pegó en el poste de Marco.
Been a great week up here at Rock Creek, and our final show from Deer Lodge, Montana, as unrestricted free agency in the NHL well underway today. A couple of other signings. Mark Borowiecki, who would spend his entire career with the Ottawa Senators, he leaves Canada's capital, signs a 2-year deal with a total of $4 million to go to the Nashville Predators. Gary mentioned earlier Kevin Shattenkirk, who just won a Stanley Cup in the last week or two with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He leaves to go to Anaheim. Kyle Turris, who had his deal bought out by Nashville, his deal is going to have the next 8 years. His deal is going to be a cap hit for the Nashville Predators. He had 4 years left, so it's twice the term, but he signs a 2-year deal worth $3.3 million to go to Edmonton. So Radko Gudas going to Florida on a 3-year contract, the defenseman. The other interesting note, and I saw Gary, was there's been so much talk about Oliver Ekman-Larsson and the Coyotes defenseman who has a no trade, basically okayed to either go to Boston or Vancouver.
He's got a no move.
No move.
Yes.
So he's got to okay it.
Yeah.
And you would know this game better than I would. His agent says he's going to stay with the Coyotes. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But he's another of those, not unrestricted, but a player that could have been on the move.
Yeah, well, I would imagine that, you can say that he's not going to waive it, but if you're another GM from another team and you decide at some point in time you want Oliver Ekman-Larsson and you call Bill Armstrong and say, hey, how's this sound? And he says, well, it sounds good, but I have to talk to the player. I don't think the player is not going to listen. And if the place comes out to be a good thing for him. That being said, Oliver Ekman-Larsson could have gone to market previously, and the Arizona Coyotes said, no, don't go. Sign here. Here's the money. He probably could have got more money in the market, and they said, and we'll give you a no move. A no move is a reward for a player that has, done everything right. And you say, we're going to put you in a situation where if you don't want to go and take your kids from the school in the neighborhood they love and move them half the way across the continent or to another country, to another climate, to whatever, you don't have to do that. So, and I don't begrudge a player that has it. I think that it's if you're a general manager, you don't want to hand them out like candy. You want to keep them. You want to keep that number of Vegas only has one. I would imagine. I can talk about Alex Pietrangelo. He's an unrestricted free agent. If they were gonna sign him, that would be something that he would want. The only thing about Pietrangelo that kind of scares me a little bit is term. How old is he? Is he 31?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Let me check real quick.
And he's going to want 7 years, and he's going to want I have no problem with the money today. And to be honest with you, if the hockey business returns to what you expect it will be, the salary cap will go up, and near the end of the deal is 31.
It's 30. He'll be 31 in January.
Okay.
Yep.
So 37 at the end of a 7-year deal. That's the only part that kind of the money doesn't bother me. The cap hit doesn't bother me because I think the cap will go up when the economics get better. And if you're Kelly McCrimmon, you're looking at your team and you look at the Blue Lines that won the cup. They had some pretty impressive players, and I think he makes you better. I think Alex Pietrangelo, you put him in the mix with the Golden Knights, and even if you have to subtract from the Blue Line, anyone but Shea Theodore, you get better.
Well, and that's the deal, right? So if you're going to bring him in, someone's going to go out. One or a couple, right? That's the basic math equation. I do think there's a school of thought, Gary, that the Golden Knights could use some more skill on their blue line. Shea Theodore, by far their most offensively gifted defenseman. When you look at the weapons that Tampa had on that back end, you look at the weapons that Dallas had on the back end. The Golden Knights don't have that. They have Shea Theodore, who's a ton of skill, and then after that, not so much. At least right now, not so much.
No, and then Nick Hague is pushing for regular work. Dylan Coughlin is pushing for regular work. So again, I do think that you could trade, other than Shea Theodore, and I probably put Zach Whitecloud on that list because I wouldn't want to trade Zach Whitecloud right now. I think he's really projecting and is going to be. I don't think he's a top pairing D, but I think he's a second pairing defenseman that could play in the NHL for 15 years. And those guys are really nice to have, especially when you have team control for a long time. All those good things. So the other guys, I think, would be more likely to be. You would consider moving one of those guys. So and I think you could do that. And if you moved one of those players, and brought in Alex Pietrangelo, I think you are better. Look, he's an Olympian. He's played for Team Canada. This is a guy that's I don't think he's won a Norris, but he's been right up there.
Right.
This is a legit number one. Plays great in his own end. He's a 50-point guy with regularity. Super player. Captain of a Stanley Cup team. Like, what else do you want?
Yeah, the only cup the Blues have ever won, right?
Yeah.
He's the captain of that team. And still, look, that is still a possibility that he would stay put. Obviously, he spent his entire 12-year career in St. Louis. Just a note you mentioned about Ekman-Larsson, Gary. So he signed an 8-year extension worth $66 million 2 years ago. So he's 2 years into that. So he's still got a long way to go on this contract if he were to end up going somewhere else, Boston, Vancouver, wherever it may be.
What's the cap hit?
So his cap hit is $8.25 million a year.
Yeah.
For now 6 to go. The money gets up there. Next year he's going to make 10.5, kind of falls off the last few years. But the cap hit, 8.25 for Ekman-Larsson that he signed July 1st of 2018 with Arizona.
You remember when the Golden Knights traded for Alec Martinez? A lot of people were looking at his statistics over the last couple of years and, this is a terrible trade. Be really careful about judging a defenseman on a bad team.
Yeah.
Because you end up playing in your own end all night. And, the style that Rick Tocchet has adopted in Arizona is defensive because they can't score. And they do some things. They're careful. And I think Ekman-Larsson has played a ton of hockey in his own end. I think he's better than the numbers show the last. The numbers are great, but you got to have some context when you apply them to a situation. And I think what he's been forced to do in Arizona, and look at the surrounding cast. It's not like there's a bunch of great D there. I think he's been played in. He's probably had a ton of defensive zone starts. And he's probably put into a lot of difficult situations.
We've heard Kelly McCrimmon say over the years, Gary, that you therefore, because it is draining to play on a bad team year after year after year. You have to, if you're looking, and we talked about this when they acquired Alec Martinez. Obviously, he was a big part of 2 Cup teams in L.A., but Kings are going in a different direction. You have to try to project how is this player going to fit in your lineup on a much better team than – seeing things kind of go in the wrong direction, be it with Arizona, be it with Los Angeles. So those are all things that, good teams, when you're trying to add a player that's coming from a team that's struggling, you have to try to sort that through before you make the move. But nighttime at noon, here from Rock Creek Cattle Company, free agency in the NHL will keep you up to date on all of those moves. Shane Knighty is going to join us for the next couple of segments, our last 2 segments of nighttime at noon. And as we said, we will keep you posted of any sort of movement here as we move along. Gary, before we go to break, what do you got?
Well, one of the things they do on TSN on these days, because you got to kill time between trades, is they do lots of lists. And, one of the things they've done today is their 2022 Team Canada Olympic team. And they've got three people there. Craig Button, Mike Johnson, and Brian Hayes have put together their rosters for Team Canada in 2022. Craig Button told us the other day he would have Shea Theodore on his list, and not just on his list, but he'd be their second D on the left side. He is. Brian Hayes has Shea Theodore as their second left shot D. Mike Johnson has Shea Theodore at the top of the mountain.
Oh, there you go.
On the left side. I should note, on the right side, on MJ's list, on the other side of Shea Theodore, Alex Pietrangelo.
There you go. All right. There you go.
Did I say it right?
Pietrangelo. Yep. You got it. So far, I think you're at about
He's on Hayes' list.
You're about
as well.
85%, which is perfect.
Say it
I
right.
know you do. You
Just
do a nice
stop it.
job. You do a nice job. All right, our coverage brought to you by Green Valley Grocery. They love serving and engaging with the wonderful Southern Nevada communities by way of quality customer service, friendly smiles, top-notch fuel service, and all of the great food, drink, and snack brands you've come to expect from your neighborhood convenience store. Come see us 24/7 at one of our many locations or visit us at gvgrocery.com. Nighttime at noon, continuing from Rock Creek. Shane Knighty joins us for our next 2 segments and our final 2 segments of the week when we come back on Fox Sports Las Vegas.
Bright light city, gonna set my soul on fire. I got a whole lot of money that's ready to burn, so get those stakes up higher. There's 1,000 pretty women waiting down there. They're all living the devil may care. Well, I'm just a devil with a lot of despair. So Viva Las Vegas, Viva Las Vegas. Oh, I wish that
Golden Knight fans, it's your boy Lil Jon. Yeah, Viva Las Vegas, Viva Las Vegas, Viva Las Vegas.
Little John, ho ho ho. You know what would make this song so Vegas?
What's that, Wayne?
Hit it.
Las Vegas! Las Vegas! Yeah! Yeah!
Just past 12:30 in Vegas on this Friday, the 9th of October, and our final show on what has been just a lot of fun this week up here at Rock Creek for all of us, covering, of course, the draft on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then here on Friday, unrestricted free agency kicking in. We also thank you for tuning in on all of our social media channels, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. If you are watching on any of those channels, we have an addition right here in the center of the screen. He was loitering out in the restaurant area here at Rock Creek, doing not much of anything, it seems. It was nice enough to say, if you need help, which we do, I'd love to be able to help.
Well,
Shane Knighty with us.
Make it a better show.
Yeah, no question about it. So we mentioned a lot of transactions here today. Happy for John Merrill, Golden Knights defenseman that signed a one-year deal to play with his hometown Detroit Red Wings. Had the chance to spend some time with John over the last couple of years. He is just such a good guy, a real beauty, and he gets to go home to Detroit to play with the Red Wings. Malcolm Subban and Dominik Kubalik, they re-signed. They were both restricted free agents. Kubalik led the Blackhawks last year in goals. At this hour, Malcolm Subban's their number one goaltender, right, with Corey Crawford not re-signing. So those are a couple of more deals as well. Matt Benning also signed today with Nashville, so a young defenseman. Shane, what's caught your attention here now? So we're a few hours into unrestricted free agency. What is anything that's been an eye-opener for you so far?
Well, I think you mentioned John Merrill. I think guys like him, Matt Benning, I saw Tyler Ennis, all these deals right around that $1 million mark. These guys jumping at these opportunities earlier, I think, are smart right now, because the longer this goes, the more teams get up against this flat cap, and those are the type of deals that might not be there. So I think you're going to see a few more of those guys trying to lock into a team quick at not a high price, because it's going to be valuable pieces. And eventually, though, they run out of money. That's what's going to make it really tricky. The big guys are going to get their money. I think, you look at some of the goalie contracts. Certainly makes the Leonard one look really good at what the Golden Knights are able to lock him in. When you see Hudobin get 3.5, I know he had a great playoff, but he's still considered a backup. Matt Murray got big money in Ottawa, and there's still a lot of goalies out there. So it's there's options for, as you said, Chicago. I think Detroit needs a goalie. Edmonton.
Yep.
Take us into the mind of John Merrill. I ran into him recently, and we talked a little bit about his situation, and he said, he goes, you know what, I think I can play, and I want that chance. And that's that more than money or anything will be what I'm looking for, is the chance to play. And, maybe you were in a similar situation at one point in time in your career, or maybe not, I'm not sure.
Oh, yes.
So, just take us through that process.
Well, it's exciting when you get an offer. That certainly helps. That's the first step, is to get an offer. But you said it, and I think that's key for anybody, is wanting to have that opportunity to prove yourself. You have to have that belief in your abilities, or else you're in the wrong profession. And in John Merrill, I think I love the way he handled himself. He's a depth guy. Such a great attitude, laid back, great team, very popular in the room. Whether he's playing, whether he's, a healthy scratch for that game, he kept the same attitude, and when called upon, he was able to come in and perform. And those are the type of guys you like to see get rewarded. He's going to go to an organization in Detroit that's trying to turn things around. They're trying to build, so he's going to play. And I think he can. I think he's certainly a top 6 guy. I don't think you're going to see him top 4, but he'll get good playing minutes in Detroit, and well-deserved for him.
You mentioned that he's laid back. When I did bump into him that day in Summerlin, he wasn't laid back about that. He was really, I can play. Yeah. I've proven I can play, and I want to play. And that was...
that's confidence.
Yeah, but it was interesting because, he was such a great team guy. We never saw that, I'm getting screwed sort of aura around John Merrill. And he didn't act like that at all during the season, but... This was, he knew there was an opportunity to be unrestricted, and he did have that kind of confidence about himself that the phone was gonna ring, and it was. Bobby Ryan signed with Detroit, and his comment was, after talking to Steve Yzerman for a few minutes, I knew I didn't need to talk to anyone else, and I bet you, that was the message from Steve Yzerman to John Merrill: you're gonna play.
A great opportunity for him, too.
Yeah,
right?
It is
that
a really
team,
good opportunity.
Rebuilding. Goalies that are still out there, Shane, to your point. Corey Crawford, Corey Schneider, Craig Anderson, Jimmy Howard, Thomas Greiss, Mike Smith, Ryan Miller. Howard and Miller are getting long in the tooth. You wonder if they might get a deal. Crawford. Markstrom, as you said, signs to go to Calgary. We saw what Thatcher Demko did, right? So he'll be the new number 1, along with, I don't know if it'd be a tandem with Braden Holtby or not, but they've shown that he has shown that he certainly could play at that level. The Golden Knights, he gave the Golden Knights nightmares over the final 3 games of that series.
And he was the reason Vancouver, who I thought probably would be looking to re-sign Markstrom, were able to let him go because of that series and what happened with the performance of Thatcher Demko. And you look right now in the Western Conference, there's a lot of solid pairings of goalies on all these teams as where they stand right now. With San Jose adding Dubnyk, Calgary, Markstrom. Yep. So, but yeah, still some goalies out there and some teams that have those needs.
Including, when you talk about solid tandems, the one that the Golden Knights have right now. Gary, you made this point, and I kind of wanted to get into it a little bit with you. The Edmonton Oilers need a goalie. Is there a general – how concerned do teams get about trading? I remember this back 100 years ago in Boston, where the Patriots, it was the Brady Bledsoe thing. The Patriots traded Drew Bledsoe to the Buffalo Bills. They could care less that they were a division opponent. Does that factor into it at all with the Golden Knights, do you think, Gary, of if they were going to move Marc-Andre Fleury, that they'd have to run into him a bunch of times a year playing the Edmonton Oilers?
Well, I think the situations change here, and it depends on who you're dealing with. So, like right now, for some teams, Marc-Andre Fleury, some teams would look at Vegas and say, well, we have the leverage. You need the cap space. If Ken Holland picks up the phone and phones Kelly McCrimmon and says, let's talk about Marc-Andre Fleury, there's no cap space leverage in that regard. And then the response from Kelly McCrimmon is, okay, well, what do you have to offer? And it's not I'm going to hold cap and I'm going to send a sweetener for you. No. You want Marc-Andre Fleury, our Hall of Fame goaltender? Well, who do you want to put in the mix? You know, like I don't know who, but you go down their roster and you start looking at players, and all of a sudden, you know, maybe
Connor McDavid?
Is he available?
No.
What about Draisaitl?
No.
Okay.
The other issue for Edmonton, they've already got $4.5 million tied up in Mikko Koskinen.
I was going to say, there is some belief that they think Koskinen performed well enough at times for them. He's a big guy, but you know, that's the heels of the Chiarelli deal that was handed Koskinen kind of as an unknown.
I'll tell you what, if I'm betting on the Battle of Alberta this year, Calgary just got a lot closer to chalk with the addition of Jacob Markstrom today. So and that to me is, if you're in the Pacific Division, that's kind of where you'd want them to land, either, you know, in LA or San Jose or Anaheim, teams that are rebuilding. Calgary got better, but I don't know if that gets them over the top. But if you had to put Markstrom in Edmonton, it could have been a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah, for sure. This is, as we say, a busy day. Nothing yet for Alex Pietrangelo, Taylor Hall, or Torrey Krug. I wonder about
Krug. I think Krug will wait for the Pietrangelo to fall.
Yeah, and you wonder with Krug, a Michigan native, played hockey at Michigan State, as far as I know. And, you know, would he want to – and I wonder about that pitch, if he has any desire to go back and play for his hometown Wings. You know, and you mentioned earlier, you know, the clout that Steve Yzerman has, right?
Yeah.
If a pitch to Torrey Krug would be, look, we're rebuilding. We want you to be a big anchor of this team, to be part of rebuilding. If you go sign there, and look, he's in a different spot in his career than John Merrill is, quite obviously. You know it's going to take a while. You're going to be in for potentially some tough years. He could be leaving a Boston team that's very good. He could, I'm sure, have offers from other teams that are very good. Or does that have any sentimental pull that you go back to your home state team?
I think that'd be the only reason. Home state. When you're a free agent, what's attractive? Well, you look at the city. What's it like to live there? Well, we're talking about Detroit. I don't know if that's the most desirable destination for a lot of people. And then if not, then you need to be a winner. And that could be a while for them before that team's winning. You know, I think they got the new facility. Certainly that's very attractive. And Steve Yzerman is the right guy to have at the helm to try and attract players to come in there. But I think it's a slow build before you get those big names. But as you mentioned, Krug's attachment to the state of Michigan might help.
You know, Cap Friendly is such a fun place. You can go there and kind of get lost. James Neal has 3 more years at 5.75. Isn't that fun?
Good for him?
Yeah, good for Jimmy. Shane, we had the discussion before you got here. Vegas trades Paul Stastny. You know, let play coach for a minute here. Who plays where at center ice this year?
For the Golden Knights?
Yeah.
Right now, I think Cody Glass has that spot in the second line. Or first, whatever you want to call it.
I kind of think you play him with Stone because
I think you got to get the opportunity. Him playing with Stone, that's Stone's so reliable all over the ice, and Stone's had good history playing with young players in Ottawa when he played with Tkachuk
and Colin White.
So both those guys, I think Cody Glass is he's at that point in his career. He's put on some size. He got a taste of the NHL. He understands it a little bit more and should be ready to start. And
how do you like that fly?
And this fly's been they're all around.
It
today.
went from Gary's forehead to my laptop screen. Now you're fresh meat.
It's all right. It doesn't
not
bother
sweet
me.
enough.
I'm not as easily distracted as you guys. I can phase that.
Mike
stuff
Pence
out.
in the middle here.
Yeah.
I'm used to tuning out you guys. I can tune out a fly.
Yeah, but we're used to it in general. I would tune me out too. So, all right, we've got one final segment coming up from Rock Creek. We've had a lot of fun here doing all these shows this week in what is truly a spectacular setting. Part of our coverage brought to you by T-Bird Jewels, as Las Vegas' most trusted jeweler since 1962 and an official watch partner of the Vegas Golden Knights. T-Bird Jewels has plenty of options to satisfy your jewelry and watch needs. Learn more at tbirdjewels.com. Dave, Shane, and Gary will step aside, come back, and wrap things up from Big Sky Country in a moment on Fox Sports Las Vegas. Ekman-Larsson looking for his second shorthanded goal in as many nights. And shot, score! What a goal! Through his own legs! The Henderson Silver Knights have a name and logo. Be the first to night up with the official HSK gear. Available now at the Arsenal and VegasTeamStore.com. Get your inaugural men's and women's Henderson Silver Knights t-shirts and hats and be the first ones to represent the Valley's newest team. Don't miss out. Go Knights, go! Dave Gosher, Shea Knighty, Gary Lawless with you. Nighttime at noon. Closing in on the finish line up here at Rock Creek, and our coverage brought to you by Allegiant. Allegiant is going the distance for health and safety because the further we go now, the safer it will be to go farther tomorrow. Allegiant, the official domestic airline of the Vegas Golden Knights. Low fares, nonstop flights. Book now at Allegiant.com. Couple of more signings, and it's interesting, guys. This started at noon Eastern, unrestricted free agency, and really had a flurry of activity early. It's slowed up a little bit, but Tampa Bay, the Lightning, the defending Stanley Cup champs, Pat Maroon and Luke Schenn, stay put. Of course, back-to-back cups for Pat Maroon, so he stays with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning have put Tyler Johnson on waivers, so there was.
What's the explanation for that, Gary?
Well, he's got a no move and or no trade of some sort, and he's been unwilling to relent to as many teams as they want, so they waive him, and I think they can get around it that way somehow.
So he's on waivers. We talk about, the Golden Knights have had their issues cap-wise. Tampa Bay Lightning they're in the same boat when it comes to that. There'd been reports earlier in the week, although it hasn't seemed to gain much steam since then, about the potential of Steven Stamkos maybe being on the move, but that has not happened either. But flat cap. It was already going to be lower than teams thought initially, right? Yeah. Throw in the COVID-19 crisis, flat cap for the foreseeable future. And it's amazing to me, Shane. So there's a lot of teams that are up against it. How about the Ottawa Senators? That even with signing Matt Murray today to that 4-year, $26 million extension, so that's $6.25 a year for Murray. They're still $10 million shy of the floor, and that's with almost $10 million, $9.7 in dead money from Marian Gaborik, Dion Phaneuf, and Bobby Ryan. So, this is a team rebuilding, and right now you have relatively inexpensive younger talent that's, kind of the core of that team. And Matt Murray obviously signed for big money today, but they still have a ways to go to get to the cap floor.
No, they still do. They had a huge draft day, a ton of picks, able to rebuild, but that's the future. Now they've got to find a way. They've got to get players on the ice. They've got to bring their salary cap up to the floor, and you'd expect to see some moves made by them. They've got to bring in some veteran guys that can help bring along these young players. They may traded for Eric Branson, who's going to come in and be a veteran player, big tough defenseman. I think they need more of that type of character on their team.
And for Kelly McCrimmon, if he does want to trade one of his players, this teams like Ottawa become an opportunity. And the longer you wait, let's say Ottawa decides that they just want to be a pass-through and take some salary and then move the player on somewhere else. There's how many guys are there out there that can really help you in that situation? So, I have read some reports that, the Vegas's salary cap situation is a mess. And Mike Rupp said, everyone knows that Vegas is up against it, and they're demanding that the Golden Knights hold this much salary plus throw in a first or a second. Did Kelly McCrimmon just fall off a turnip truck? Honestly.
I hope not. No, I hope
not. The suggestions that are out there, we watched how...
We're in the business, and a lot of people just don't know.
We watched how he manipulated the cap last year and was able to add Robin Leonard, Alec Martinez, Nick Cousins. Help me out. Who else did he have? The fourth player.
Those are the big ones.
At
the deadline.
At the
The
deadline.
deadline.
I thought he had one more.
Chandler Stevenson earlier in the year.
And then Nick Waugh in a trade for Eric Holla. So I just think that, you should be real careful about, A, what you're saying if you don't really know, and B, what you're reading and what you're listening to right now, because McPhee, McCrimmon, and Lugerner are real good at their jobs.
Well, and that's every city, every place. Everybody has their opinions, and a lot of it is they hear from someone and they make. The people that are in charge of these organizations know what they're doing.
Yeah, they're not always perfect. They don't bat 1,000, right? You know what I mean? And situations change, and sometimes you sign a contract, and the day you sign it, it looks really good. And then things happen, and a couple of years later, it doesn't look as good. And it's how you handle those situations, how you swallow your pride and say, okay, this isn't as good as it once was. Fine. What do we do about it? Well, these guys are really good at finding solutions.
Goaltenders, just to kind of recap, that have already been on the move today. Henrik Lundqvist, a one-year deal to go to the Washington Capitals. So their tandem will be Ilya Samsonov, real good young goaltender, made Braden Holtby expendable, right? And he's the future present and the future with Washington. The aforementioned Holtby goes to Vancouver on a 3-year deal. Cam Talbot goes to Minnesota. So Bill Guerin continues to be one of the most active GMs in the league. 3 years for Talbot at $11 million. So they have a new goaltender. Of course, they had moved Evan Dubnyk to San Jose earlier this week. Jacob Markstrom goes to Calgary on a free agent deal. And then Matt Murray, who had just landed in Ottawa via trade from the Pittsburgh Penguins, signs a 4-year extension. Anton Hudobin stays put. A 3-year extension to stay with Dallas, 3 years and $10 million.
And we still don't have the numbers on Markstrom yet.
No,
that's.
Not yet.
I'm curious.
I'm hearing it's 6 by 6-ish.
Yeah,
6-ish by 6-ish.
It's about what he made. That was about where he was, I think, in Vancouver, right? I think he had signed. Was that right on that? I'll look it up.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was making. I doubt he was making 6
No, I don't think he was that high.
No.
Maybe I'm thinking
he
of
just had his
else.
best, his best couple seasons.
Yeah,
this was his contract to cash in, and
hold the phone. I think you're right.
Oh, we are right.
Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't.
We're just talking about people that pretend to know more than they do.
He wasn't making that much. Hello, self. He wasn't making that much money. He's made some good money, but not as good as what he's going to make. What he's going to make now. Still nothing on, as we said, Alex Pietrangelo, Torrey Krug, or Taylor Hall just yet. Anyways.
Well, and he usually takes one of those big ones. When those signings happen, then everything maybe gets a little more steam.
We've got some thank yous to say.
Sure do.
Oh, yes.
And wanted to take a minute because this has been, first off, a heck of a lot of fun for us.
You're welcome, Dave.
To come up here. Thanks, Shane. It's been wonderful to have you with us, as always. But list of people here at Rock Creek. First, of course, Bill Foley, Todd Pollock. They have been wonderful hosts here this week. George Guevara as well. The entire staff here at Rock Creek Cattle Company for hosting us all week long. Our friends at Lotus, Natalie Marsh, Kyle Engelhart, Jared Justice for kind of agreeing to this idea and also allowing us to do this nighttime at noon. It was something that came up at the start of the playoffs. This is the 43rd and final nighttime at noon, at least for this season anyways. And, of course, all of our broadcasters, the three of us, Dan Duva, Darren Millard, Stormy, Mike McKenna, Darren Elliott. Gordon Weigers is listed as a broadcaster. What is going on here? We're going to chat about that later with Gordon. But from the Golden Knights, Kerry Bubolz, Brian Killingsworth, Eric Tosi for signing off on this idea. Who else we got here? Joe Sands, along with Ray Regal for assisting us at technical aspects of putting this show together. Double A, Andrew Abrams, who's standing right behind that camera, and allowing us, the entire production team, to kind of invade their space for 9 weeks to plan all this. Jenna Viard, who's been just a fantastic producer here of the simulcast all week long, not only for nighttime at noon, but also for our draft specials. Garrett Calloway, just sitting off to my right, for helping out as well. And, of course, Sage Salmons. It's been a lot of fun for us to not only do these shows, but also Alyssa Girardi. We can mention her name.
The Queen of Detroit.
Anybody else that I missed?
Every time we said something bad about
I'm
Detroit,
trying to think you. Who'd you miss?
Some sign language. We missed Chef Q, who put together
Q.
some fantastic meals. Shane went into the kitchen last night and ordered off the menu, and it delivered. And
I actually didn't. I
there
just
is
asked a question, and he
there's a
did
ghost out there who has come into our place and made our beds and put their dishes in the dishwasher. Whoever that ghost is, that angel, thank you for looking after our cabin.
It's been a blast this week.
You're welcome.
One final note. You guys will love this. You know I love the Beatles. John Lennon would have been 80 years old today. So a special birthday wish to John Lennon. Thanks for doing this with us all week, tuning in all week on Fox Sports Las Vegas.